Oh, welcome back. I'm sorry, I just abruptly, for no reason, I think I'm still new to it. At 9:20, yeah, it went off, and I don't know why. Anyways, so let's continue the discussion. So, oh, there's one person. One person is, who is that? Welcome, welcome, one person. I'm still new to it, so I don't know uh, who you are, but welcome. So yes, I was talking about uh, this wafer shape, the Pringle shape. So one advantage of the Pringle shape is that it can withstand pull and push forces much better than other shapes. And because of that, also, it's difficult to break. If you try to break a Pringle versus, let's say, a Lay's, you will see that breaking a Pringle is much more difficult. Why? Because of the shape, because it will resist pull and push forces. So, as a result, every time you bite into a Pringle, it will always be very, very crunchy. I mean, much more crunchy compared to the other chips because they are designed a bit differently. Okay, and because the other chips don't have this advantage of design, what the manufacturers do in, for example, Lay's and other chips, they have to fill a lot of nitrogen into the package. That's why some people complain that I'm buying air because it's just most of the package is just air, but it's actually nitrogen. And by the way, your air that you breathe is about 78% nitrogen anyway. So, yeah, you can say you're buying air. But there's a reason why they put nitrogen in the package. It's to make sure that when you open, it's not stale. So, to maintain the crunch, even if you open it after a long time, they have to put in nitrogen. So there's a purpose why there's a lot of air, i.e., nitrogen, in the package. In case of Pringles, you don't need much air because the shape makes sure that whenever you bite into it, it's a crunch. And people like crunch. In fact, uh, we humans like crunch so much that if you want to sell a very bad food product that's not good for your health, that's not very tasty either, all you need to do as a manufacturer is to make it crunchy. And that's why breakfast cereal is crunchy, very, very crunchy, because somehow when things are crunchy, they just taste better. You feel better when you bite into something and it's crunchy. So that's another advantage of the saddle shape or the hyperbolic parabolite shape of uh, Pringles. Now, going further, I think we are 3,500 subscribers on this channel, which is fantastic. So, what I'm thinking is we'll be posting at least one short video every week, and I welcome your suggestions. If you have any suggestions, just send me a message or go to my previous live sessions. Just leave me a comment on things that you think are interesting, and it will be worth for me to make a short video of it. And if I find it interesting enough, I'll definitely make the short video. And of course, I'll acknowledge you if you are the inspiration behind the video. So that's a promise to my dear subscribers. I will try to bring out at least one short video every week. And the full length video, uh, until now, I've been doing one video every 2 months. But I will try. I'm not promising you anything, but I will sincerely try my best if I can bring out at least one video every month. That would be great. Okay, so that's what we are planning for the future. Now, the video that I'm working on. So right now, I'm working on two ideas. The first one is because I got a lot of views on my video on Dr. Ansel Keys, and it was to do with fitness, with health generally, and a lot of people commented. In fact, it's the first video to have crossed 139,000 views, which to me is fantastic. It's great. That's the highest viewed video on my channel. So thank you so much for that. It got a lot of likes, more than 5,000 likes, more than 1,000 comments. So people really care about their personal health. And it also tells me that people are searching uh, things that are related to their health issues on internet, on YouTube specifically. I also got some comments telling me that I am a health influencer. So I'm not a health influencer. I don't intend to be a health influencer. This is just one of my many different videos on many different topics that got picked by YouTube algorithms. But I also want to make videos on health about things that I personally do in my personal life and things that I have benefited from. And one other thing that I got a lot of comments about is people are asking me, a lot of comments are there about making a video on cooking oils, specifically vegetable oils. So I'm doing research on it. In fact, it's a very interesting area for me also because I just I had a gut feeling. The gut feeling was that I grew up in a farm, and we grow mustard. My grandfather grew mustard. My father is a farmer; he grows mustard. And I myself, when I was in high school, and when I was doing my engineering, I would go back to the village for harvesting and sometimes for irrigation and things like that. So we still grow our own mustard. You would go to a neighborhood, expeller and get the oil out of it, and the byproduct would be used by the cows and buffaloes as part of their feed. So that oil that I would get from the mustard that we grew, this oil had a smell, and it's a very distinct smell. Similarly, butter and ghee that my mother would uh, create our own homemade butter from yogurt. I think many people don't know that if you just churn yogurt, you get the white butter, and then you have to heat the butter to get ghee out of it. Anyways, so all of these, mainly these three fats were used in our household: butter, ghee, and mustard oil. And each of them had very distinct aroma, very distinct smell. But then, oh, what about virgin coconut oil for cooking? I keep reading mixed reviews about it because it's supposedly good at natural state, yet bad when heated. Thank you. Okay, very good. Good question. Thank you, Gigi or Gigi. Uh, yes, so I was coming to that. And so Gigi asked me about virgin coconut oil, or I suppose that means unfiltered coconut oil, just like we were using unfiltered mustard oil. Similarly, in my friends who are from South India, they use, especially uh, people from Kerala. There's a state in India called Kerala in South India. The literal meaning of that name, Kerala, the state's name, is the land of coconut, sorry. And they use a lot of coconut there. And that's where I started using coconut because one of my roommates was from Kerala, and he would bring this, virgin unfiltered coconut oil from his place, and we would use it to cook. I had never used coconut oil for cooking before. Now, Gigi, Kogi, to answer your question, yes, unfiltered and filtered. These are two very different things. Unfiltered coconut oil and filtered coconut oil that you get in a supermarket, for example. Unfiltered mustard oil and filtered mustard oil that you get in the supermarket. These are two very different things. And the reason they are different is, so let's talk about coconut oil, because mustard oil is still, I'm not going to talk in detail about that here. But yes, coconut oil. Coconut oil is saturated fat. What does that mean? That means coconut oil, being saturated fat, doesn't get oxidized easily. It's saturated. Saturated fats means they have no more place. They are already saturated. The chemical bonds are already saturated, and so they have no space for any further, combination with other molecules. It's very difficult to oxidize this kind of saturated fats like ghee and butter and coconut oil. They become solid at room temperature. They get into the liquid form when they are heated, but then afterwards they again go back to solid state. So these are saturated fats. And if you remember, I also touched upon saturated fats versus unsaturated fats in my Ansel Keys video. Now, that's saturated fat. So coconut oil is good. I think it's good because it's saturated oil and it doesn't oxidize easily. What about other oils, such as, for example, let's take the example of olive oil. Okay, olive oil is unsaturated. What does that mean? So how can you find if an oil is saturated or unsaturated? If the oil remains in liquid form at room temperature, there's a very high chance that it's unsaturated. If an oil or fat becomes solid at room temperature, there's a very high chance that it's saturated. Of course, there are exceptions, but I'm saying, in the general sense of things. So, for example, lard or tallow or ghee or coconut oil, these are all saturated fats. They don't oxidize easily. What does that mean? They don't oxidize means it's comparatively good for your health. Let's talk about other types of fats called unsaturated fats. Now, there are three types of unsaturated fats, but let's just focus on two of them here. So there's something called MUFA, monounsaturated fatty acid. Mono means one. So these fatty acids are unsaturated, such as, for example, olive oil. But there's only one unsaturated bond. So it has only one. So it's unsaturated, but it's monounsaturated fatty acids. It has only one place out of the whole chain of fat. There's only one place where it has a scope of being, changed by a chemical reaction. And so these MUFA have what you call oleic acid in excess. So you can say MUFA, which is monounsaturated fatty acid, such as olive oil, is basically, majority of it is just oleic acid. Now, MUFA can get oxidized. It is not as good as, for example, butter or coconut oil or ghee or tallow or lard, but it's better than the other types of unsaturated fats called PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acid. Poly means many. So in a PUFA, in a polyunsaturated fatty acid, there are more places where they have scope of reacting, doing a chemical reaction, and hence getting oxidized. So basically the difference between polyunsaturated fats, monounsaturated fats, and saturated fats is the propensity of getting oxidized when heated. But why is oxidation bad? Well, oxidation is bad because it creates something called, in simple language, it creates aldehydes inside of your body, or for example, when the process is going on. So why is the food from fast food chains bad? It's mainly because they use the polyunsaturated fatty acid, PUFA. They use seed oils, which they call vegetable oils. And interestingly enough, when McDonald's started, they were using beef tallow and lard as the fat to make French fries. But then some guy in the Rust Belt, I don't know, of America, I forgot his name, but this guy, he got a heart attack, and he believed that he got the heart attack because of saturated fats, because that was the general wisdom of the day. And it takes a lot of time, as I explained in my video about these 3 stories of grit, that even doctors and researchers also suffer from bias. So anyways, long story short, this billionaire, he spent a lot of money, and he forced McDonald's to change the fat from saturated natural fats to these polyunsaturated fatty acids, the seed oils. Why is the food from a fast food chain bad for you? Because it has been heated at, let's say, 100 degrees Celsius or 125 degrees Celsius to make your French fries, to make other foods. So it's heated at a very high temperature, and it's heated in the presence of polyunsaturated fatty acids, which is bad because it oxidizes very quickly. What's the problem with oxidizing? The problem with oxidizing is, after it oxidizes, it creates aldehydes. Aldehydes are not good for you, not good for your health, not good for us humans. When you eat these fatty acids, polyunsaturated fatty acids, I just explained, because they are very easy to get oxidized. As a result of oxidation, of the process of oxidizing, they create aldehydes. So when the food goes into your body, it goes into your cells, it oxidizes faster, it oxidizes quickly. As a result, aldehydes are released into your body, because that's where these fatty acids are being oxidized. And it's been found recently that there's irrefutable proof that these aldehydes that get deposited in our body, and they are responsible for aging and Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, so things like that. So it can create a lot of problems in your body. So what's good? It's good that you consume something that you have been consuming for thousands of years. We humans evolved along with the food that was available to us in natural form before the industrialization of food started in the end of 1800s and in the beginning of 1900s. Before that, most humans would only use food that was locally available, and it wasn't much processed. Especially the fats that we were using were just from nature. So you had tallow, lard, uh, in some cases you had butter and things like that. So most of the fats that we're consuming were saturated fats, and very few, like olive oil was there, but olive oil and things like that have to be kept in a very cool place, not exposed to sunlight, because sunlight makes it easy for them to oxidize. So only in sophisticated settings, if you are very rich or if you can afford to have a place where you can keep the olive oil away from the sun, yes, of course, you can use that. But saturated fat was the go-to fat, and we never had, heart diseases. We never had the problems of obesity, things like that. So sugar was one part of the equation of us becoming unhealthier and getting a lot of CVDs and diabetes, things like that, and Alzheimer's, of course. But the second part of the equation was, what kind of fat are you using? And there was a famous, now it's very famous now, but it was hidden for a long time after the research was concluded. It's called the Minnesota study. It had 9,000 people, volunteers and patients who were part of this study, and it was a very well done study. It was it was done in a very good way because a lot of money came in, and the margin of error was very low. And so what they did is they replaced the saturated fat in people's diet with linoleic acid, which is the PUFA. So oleic acid is MUFA and linoleic acid is PUFA. Anyways, I think I'm talking very technical things here. MUFA, PUFA, linoleic acid, and oleic acid. So just wait for my video. I think the visualization of things makes it easier to understand these difficult topics. Anyways, so basically that's what I'm doing, but I'm still in the research phase because there's also a lot of research papers, especially meta studies of how it doesn't matter what kind of oil you're using as long as you keep a moderate level of usage. So it's still not conclusive. I don't know what the result of the research will be, but okay. Can cold pressed coconut oil become oxidized if used for cooking? I use it for baking in the oven and sometimes use it instead of butter. I'm thin, but my total cholesterol is high. Bad fat is low. Yes, you can reuse virgin coconut oil, cold pressed coconut oil, or unfiltered coconut oil. Why? Because it's saturated fat. Even after you heat it, there's no scope for oxygen or other chemicals, other molecules to interact with the fat. So before you heat it and after you heat it, it remains the same because it's saturated fat. So of course you can reuse it. Now when it comes to cholesterol, this is another contentious topic because a lot of people relate cholesterol with something bad. But you'll be surprised to know that majority of the cholesterol in our body is created in our body itself, in the liver, and the brain needs cholesterol. So this idea that cholesterol is bad, or if your cholesterol is high, it's always bad, and if your cholesterol is low, then you are much healthier, is also quite debatable. There are many doctors who have come forward and said, well, that's not the entire truth. There is, now they are saying there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. And in the Minnesota study, they saw that when you replace saturated fats with linoleic acid, it lowers the cholesterol, but it increases the death rate from cardiovascular disease. So lowering the cholesterol does not necessarily mean lowering the overall cholesterol does not necessarily mean that you are healthier. So please do your own research, study a bit deeper about this, and it's a good thing that your high to bad fat is low. Cholesterol is high, bad fat is low, of course. Yeah. So if your cholesterol is a bit higher, I'm not a doctor, so please take my my reply with a grain of salt. I don't want to be responsible for anything that can lead to bad health for you. But this is what I believe based on the research that I have done. Now, I am very limited in the research that I can do because I'm not a physical physician. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a medical researcher, of course. But I can understand things. I try to understand things and change it into simple to understand language. That's why I have this YouTube channel. So don't worry too much if your cholesterol is a bit higher than what is suggested, and if your fat, total fat, is lower. Fat is also, the fat that you have in your body is also two types: subcutaneous, which is the outer fat that you have on the outer layer of your body, and subcutaneous fat, which is the fat that's gathered around your organs. So if your subcutaneous fat is high, that's not a big problem. It can, seem troublesome because you can touch that fat, but there are cases where a person looks very thin from the outside, but actually they have a lot of health problems because there's a lot of fat around the organs. So their subcutaneous fat is low, but their visceral fat is high. And visceral fat is what you should focus on. So don't worry much about reusing the saturated fat. That's what we humans have been using for thousands of years, if not more than that, if not tens of thousands of years, at least for thousands of years. We've been using saturated fats for thousands of years. And of course, we reheated. Reheating saturated fat does not lead to the creation of aldehydes, which is bad for you. So, but then do your own research. Thank you. Thank you so much for asking these fantastic questions. Another topic. So this is one topic, are cooking oils that are available in your supermarket that look so shiny and so nice and with good messaging. It has extra vitamin D and it has extra vitamins so and so, and it is filtered and this and that, and it has uh, polyunsaturated fatty acid. It has so much of PUFA and it has so much of this and that. Well, if you look at the manufacturing process, I don't think you will like what you see. And lucky for us, thanks to YouTube, there are people who have actually shot the manufacturing process of these seed oils. And if you look at the different stages, you'll come to know that. Even before coming to the supermarket near you, where you can buy, even before coming to your kitchen, these so-called cooking oils, vegetable oils, have already been denatured, have already been heated many times over and over. So be careful with that. But with cold pressed coconut oil or butter, you can also reuse butter. You can also reuse ghee. You can also reuse other saturated fatty acids, because they are saturated. It's in the name. Saturated means that all the chemical bonds that they can have are totally filled up. There's no more space in uh, the fatty acid chain to react. Uh, Compared to the oils such as avocado, for example, seed oils, sunflower oil, canola oil, soybean oil, things like that, it's much better to use the saturated fats such as virgin or cold pressed coconut oil. So I think it's very safe for you. Okay, so that's one. The second idea that I am working on is I'm trying to make a video on quantum mechanics. Now I know it's it's a bit how to say, far-fetched for me to explain quantum mechanics in the easy to understand language that I use in my videos. if you look at it, even in my gravity video, where I explain that gravity is not a force, it's a field, I don't use any big mathematical formulae, things like that. I'm just using everyday simple language. And so the idea is to explain quantum mechanics from a practical point of view, how it all started. And it all started actually with blacksmiths in Europe. Blacksmiths and people who are working with molten metal, that's the place where this idea that finally led Max Planck to then start thinking in terms of this new physics called quantum mechanics. It all started with what we can call the black body problem. So that's another video that the idea that I'm working on, but I think it's going to take me a really long time, at least 3 or 4 months, before I can have something that's easily understandable for the person on the street, because that's the idea, that's the thing that I'm shooting for. Okay, fantastic. We are coming to the end of our live session today. So thank you so much, and I'm really sorry for the glitches. I'm still learning, so please forgive me for the disconnection, and then I had to connect it back again. And anyways, luckily it didn't lead to permanently things going away, so that's fantastic. Okay, and finally we have another comment from Gigi. I understand and agree that good fat is much better than unhealthy fat. I never eat anything fried. Quantum mechanics, what is your take on electric cars? I think it's a fad. Oh, yes. Let's talk about electric cars. So, yes, electric cars is an idea that's easier said than done, because the amount of these rare earth metals that you need just for the batteries is so much that to think that the whole economies will get electric 100% in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years is not a very rational way of thinking. There's a lot of hype, but a lot of roadblocks as well. With the existing technology, i.e., lithium ion technology, lithium cobalt technology, it's difficult to create an economy based on electric vehicles, electric energy, electric cars, electric trucks, things like that. Talking about electric cars specifically, yes. First of all, I think it's much better to, because it's like you're going from a gasoline, a petroleum-based economy to an electricity-based economy, especially the consumer cars. But then there are a lot of roadblocks in the sense of, so why are you going there? Because you want to decrease the global warming. But the process of extracting these rare earth elements and filtering them, processing them, converting them into batteries, putting them into electric cars, takes much more energy, which emits much more, carbon dioxide in the air. So we have to think these things more rationally than we are doing now. Of course, for example, now we know there are technology available. The wind and the solar technology is now available at almost the same price as that of, for example, petroleum or crude oil based energy. I think we should focus more on how to use this extra energy from solar and wind. And I came across a very good idea recently. It was about using bricks to store energy in the form of heat, which I think is a brilliant idea. It's executive, it can be executed, and it's very practical. It doesn't need a steep learning curve. So I don't know. I think mechanical cars devising a car that uses mechanical, spring mechanism, things like that, or gear systems to conserve more energy is much more practical, much more useful idea than going into the electronics side of it, using chemicals, using lithium and cobalt and things like that. So I don't think it's a fad, but I also don't think that it's going to be realized anytime soon. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for your fantastic questions. And I'll say goodbye to you now, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Yes, what about hundreds of people living in an apartment or condo where they are going to charge and who will pay? Yes, of course, I totally agree with that. Not only, yes, that's another thing that I didn't pay attention to. Thank you. Yes, not only is it difficult to manufacture these things while keeping the carbon emissions low, but when it comes to charging them, and what about the e-waste in the future? What happens when the batteries go down in their power? How do you replace them? What will you do with the e-waste, the electronic waste you create from that? So there's a lot of questions. The way it is going now is creating more Cobra effects than the problems solving. The problems that is solving are creating even bigger problems in the future. So that's our session for today. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then, bye-bye.